Hi, I'm Peyton West, assistant winemaker to Isabel Meunier and Lavinia Wines, and I'm here today on behalf of the Carlton Winemaker Studio with Jerry Murray, owner and winemaker of Project M. Jerry has two wines in your upcoming spring shipments. It is the Personify 2018 Pinot Noir and the Chehalem Mountain 2018 Pinot Noir, and the Chehalem Mountain will be in the Pinot Club and the Personify in the Diverse Club. How's it going, Jerry? What are you drinking anything fun in these crazy times?
Yeah, the other night we opened a 2012 Farrington Vineyard from in the Anderson Valley. I used to make wine in the Anderson Valley from William Sellium on.
That's awesome. Very nice.
In bourbon.
And bourbon. Yeah, we've been doing that too. We've been swapping between wine and bourbon as well. Usually try not to do that in the same night. Perfect. Yeah, so I love these labels. And each one's different. So this is the Chehalem Mountain, and this is, on your left, is the Personify. So there seems to be different wind patterns of some kind. What is it?
So we had these archetypal ideas that we thought Project M was about. The Personify was the original image that came from what she called the Sand series. What she does is she sets up mathematical probabilities and limits that are then randomly populated with those dots. They are not reproducible. So, and she destroys the equation. So if we lose the files, those won't happen again.
Right.
We like that. So one of the archetypal ideas was movement. That was the most important thing. The worst thing anybody could say about a Project M wine is that it's heavy and lethargic on the palate.
Right.
We like wines that move.
You want agility, right?
Exactly. So we wanted to depict that on all the labels. And then other things came in. So the idea of these limits, but within it, it's sort of random, is sort of our approach to winemaking. Like, a wine, you have to be this and you have to be this, but within that, you are free to be whatever you want.
Right.
The other thing we liked about them is that they're very simple. They're black and white, but they're complex through structure. Again, our approach to winemaking is to build structure.
Right.
That separates good from great, not aromatic, not flavors, but texture.
Right.
Structure. And that they didn't depict anything that had ever existed before. So they're not images of anything.
Right.
That's a really important, that's a very important part of our winemaking. We are determined to live outside of the shadow of the old world. We do not describe our Rieslings as Germanic or Alsatian. We do not describe our Pinot Noirs as Burgundian. We can't do that. We can bring the genetics from the old world to the new world, but we can't bring the place.
Let's go ahead and start with Personify.
So 2018 is interesting. I hadn't tasted these since we bottled them. I take that back. I tasted them in February before I released the Personify to my wine club.
Okay.
My wine club will get the Chehalem Mountain in May. Don't tell them you got it first. When I tasted them, I was struck because they behaved, 2018 in the fermenter, I think, behaved like a cool vintage. But when we get them into the glass, they behave like a much warmer vintage. Not that they're high alcohol. I mean, these are both under 14%. There's just a tremendous density. And I think it was one, the way the vintage developed tannin, and then two, the way we managed the tannin. So I think there was a lot of tannin there. But I think the hot vintage they shut the vines down. And so at any given number of days post-bloom, which is our picking metric, we had less physiological maturity than we might. And so for me, the tannins seemed to be stressy or immature. So we took an approach to try to mitigate that by wrapping them, namely by managing our lees contact and lees stirring to bring proteins in so that we create a structure around that. I think more so than any vintage I've done this, we were successful. They have a lot of density without being heavy. So it's not an over-ripeness density. It's not a high alcohol density. It's structural. And I find that pretty exciting. I've been trying to do this for years, and it just hasn't sort of worked out like it did in 2018. So I'm sort of excited to look at it.
I think you have the sweet spot there with the oak currently. I think it's a very, very balanced wine, very, very much so. And room for improvement would be just exceeding what you've already done. So for the Chehalem Mountain Vineyard, this is probably one of my favorite AVAs to work with, Chehalem Mountain AVA. And I think that this is a great representation of Chehalem Mountain AVA because to me, it's got that blue fruit along with the violet floral characteristics, and then kind of a dusting of like a little bit of earthy soil minerality to it, which I find to be Chehalem. What do you think about Chehalem AVA in general?
I just recently, working with this vineyard is my first experiences with Chehalem Mountain. What it represents in the portfolio is the sort of the generosity, the density, and then the other AVAs we work with have completely different virtues and attributes that we're trying to bring into the program. So this is what it was supposed to be. It's our sort of our richest wine, our roundest wine, and we feel we were successful with it. I'm glad that you agree that it shows quite well.
I do. I really do. And I do think that it again, similar structure with Personify, it's dense. It has its own density, which is very 2018.
Yeah.
But you talk a lot about having wine be fluid and agile, and I agree. And I think that this wine, coming from Chehalem in a bigger vintage like 18, where it's really easy to get out of control with tannins and out of control with structure, you were able to capture what Chehalem is, along with being mobile throughout the palate. And I tend to think of wines as kind of like looking at a music staff, and you kind of have the bass and you have the treble. And I think you're writing this really nice line in between those, where you're getting a little bit of bass, a little bit of treble the whole way through, and it's consistent with the palate. So I really, really like it. Do you have any recommendations as far as ageability goes on the Personify and as well as the Chehalem?
My thing with ageability is it's really about the drinker. Some people, where do you like it? If you like it brown and aged out like the English do, tuck it away for 40 years. But for me, I think both of them will really take about 3 years before they start to show what they really are. Not that they're not drinkable now. It's very important for us to make wines that are drinkable young, but do age. And we do that through managing structure and acidity. I think people that do it well, we can't sell wines that, don't drink this for 10 years.
Right.
Move on. They'll go somewhere else. And that's what we practice. I think, 18, I'm still, because of that density and is it ripeness? Is it structure? I'm thinking, drink them within 10 years, but
I agree.
Obviously hold on to something to go longer. But I think 3 is when you're really going to start to get interesting.
Okay.
They're going to be able to have much more interesting conversation, and that should continue very comfortably through 7 years and then maybe beyond.
Do you have any recommendations for the wine club as far as food pairings go?
So one of the things, I come from a culinary background. All of our wines are made to be comfortable on the table, but not demand food. It's like complimenting food and demanding food are two different things.
Of course.
I'm always a big fan of pork, just as a rule of thumb. I like it. Stay away from beef with Pinot. I think lamb, especially if you're getting good grass-fed lamb, great. I think if I were going to have salmon, I'd go with my Riesling, but I think it would work great with salmon as well. That's just the way I am.
That's fair.
But food-wise, I think, when they're young, you want things that are grilled and seared. As they age, move to braised. So,
right. I agree.
Shank, I think 7 years having this with a braised lamb shank would be a great pairing. Right now, I think it would be better with grilled lamb chops or roasted leg of lamb sort of thing.
Totally. I agree. And for those of you that are vegetarian or vegan, everything that Jerry just said, just do the same practices with veggies. Grill your veggies for those wines and then braise them for old ones.
And I think, and it's interesting because I was moving towards a plant-based diet until this happened, this whole COVID thing. But I think mushrooms are great to bring out the earthiness, because what we say is we do like dirt on our berries. And so bring out that earthiness. If there are ways you can work in sort of sweeter notes, I also think carrots are a great way to get there.
Definitely.
And as we move into summer, it's going to be a little bit more challenging, I think. But if you can sort of stew tomatoes as opposed to a sliced tomato, you'll get more of that depth and complexity. If you can use sauces to help with that, soy sauce, things that bring in the umami. The mushrooms are a great way to do that. Even if they're just a small part of a dish, they're great. And I think pastas are a really good way to bring all of those elements into a dish in a very interesting and fulfilling way. So
awesome.
Or stews as well. Although I think make sure you get the weight right. Warm liquids that are thin against these wines may not be is pleasing. And that's just sort of the chef geek in me talking.
I love it. Thank you for the advice for that. And I hope to see you at the studio 10 feet away, I guess, someday. It looks like we're not going to see each other for a long time, but it's nice to talk to you and try the wines. They're delicious. Thank you for sharing them with me, and I hope to see you soon, my friend.
Absolutely. And if any of the Wine Club members out there have any questions, feel free to email me, jerry.murray@projectmwines.
Right on. All right. See you, Jerry. Have a good one.